All right. Good evening and welcome to the Marshfield School Committee meeting for January 18th, 2022. Mrs. Pazerski, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Costello? Here. Ms. Campbell? Ms. Boyd? Mr. Greer? Here. Mrs. Brate?
Here. Will you all please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation, under God.
Okay, under the open meeting law, I just want to let everybody know that this we're being live streamed tonight, right? Over there, MCTV? Okay. If anybody in the audience is videotaping, can you please let us know right now? No one's videotaping? Awesome. Okay. Well, welcome back, everybody. I apologize for a few weeks of us having to cancel. Everybody knows why. We've all been sick. I'm still sick. Mr. Granatino looks sick. And just kidding. Thanks for being patient with us, and welcome back, everybody. We're going to move right into this here on a spotlight on excellence. Tonight we have our MPSD school resource officers. Yes, Mrs. Hubbard. I love that. I'd like to invite you guys up to this middle table right here. You can come on over. Awesome. Thank you guys so much for being here. I know that you probably worked all day or have to work tonight, and you're taking time out of your days to come hang out with us, which we really appreciate. As almost everybody in the audience might know, we have an extraordinary police department here in Marshfield that we're all very proud of. And we're even more proud of the partnership that you have with our school department. So I'd just like each one of you to take a moment and just introduce yourselves. And just, I'd love to hear what your favorite part of your job is. I love to focus on the positive. And then I'd like to hear about something that you've learned or something that you're working on as part of your job here at Marshfield Public Schools. So whoever wants to start.
I'll start. Hi, I'm Justin Crowley. I started with the elementary schools last April. My favorite part of the job is helping acclimate the new Brazilian kids that don't speak English, speak a little bit of Portuguese, so I'm able to set them at ease and make them feel a little bit comfortable. Something that I've learned is how to help out with homeless students. I didn't think that I would have to do that, but Robin Lambert does a great job. I spent a bunch of hours on the phone with her. We found housing for 2 high school kids, so it's good stuff.
That's awesome. Thank you so much.
My name is Brian Hernan. I'm the school resource officer at the Fernsburg Middle School. My favorite thing is to just pop into random classes and develop relationships with different students. I'm also a coach at the high school, so developing relationships with some of the hockey kids coming up. One thing I learned is I paired up with one of the social studies teachers, Mrs. Clifford, and we created a criminal justice club for students after school. And I learned that I thought it was going to be targeted at one population, but it's actually 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, a mixture of girls and boys, so it's pretty cool. We've had some guest speakers in, just different people from the department, and we're going to start a mock trial type program that students can see how a court system works, and we'll have judge, jury, and at the end we'll have a big presentation and present a court case in front of the class.
That's really cool. You're going to have to let us know when that is.
Absolutely.
That sounds fun.
How you doing? Tim Cleary, Marshfield High School SRO. Best part of the job is getting in and talking to the kids. Just going in the classrooms, walking the hallways, and getting to know them. And the toughest part about it in the last couple of years, obviously with the COVID and everything, is I have a whole bunch of kids that I don't even know. That I'm meeting these kids daily, especially the freshmen. It's been tough the last couple of years because I was the only SRO. Now with having these 2 gentlemen with me, it makes it easier, and now I'm starting to learn the kids on a personal level, and I'm able to get into their classrooms to see what they're doing. So I'll be starting to get into street law classes and some of the health classes. So I look forward to that.
When you guys became police officers, did you think that was this ever on the table for you to be a school resource officer?
No.
No.
Honestly, yes, it was kind of for me. I've always had an interest in working with kids, so yeah, it was on the, if I didn't know the position would open up, but yeah, it was.
That's great. I love that. I'm sure everyone on the committee is going to have something to say, but I'm going to go first. I sit on a committee for South Shore Hospital, and we were on a call the other day, and some of the doctors were saying, you know, our staff is getting really sick of us calling them heroes. They've asked us not to use that term anymore. They've asked us not to say it. You know, it's kind of just become like an ordinary thing, like, oh, you're a hero. And when I heard that, I mean, I'm not a hero, but when I heard that, I was like, I can't believe that somebody doesn't want to be called a hero. That, you know, that's like an amazing thing. Everybody, you know, when you're young and you grow up and, you know, you read these books about superheroes and people that change the world and all that stuff. I couldn't believe that I was hearing that. And when I saw on the agenda that you guys were coming tonight, it made me think of you. And I just wanted to tell you from my position and as a resident of Marshfield, I hope that you don't ever start to feel like you're just an ordinary person and that you're not making a difference and that you're not a hero, because you guys are extraordinary. And not just from my position on the school committee, but being a mom here and having kids and a family and, you know, caring about my neighbors and my community. You guys are doing God's work every single day. And I am so happy that if something goes down at my house or somewhere where I am, I know that you guys will run in and save the day. And I, you know, thanks to your awesome leadership, Chief Tavares, you're over there. Hi, Artie, nice to see you. Lieutenant Shaw. I'm just so proud of you guys, and I'm so proud to live here and work here. I could talk all night about how much I love you, but I sincerely do mean it, and thank you so much. You guys are making a difference every day in our community, and thank you for being here tonight. It's our honor to honor you. Go ahead, Sean.
Well, first of all, I do want to clarify, she literally could talk about you all night because she talks about you all the time. And of course, we all love to hear it. So, first of all, incredibly well said, and I think it's very appropriate to honor you folks here tonight, as well as the folks sitting behind you and all the great work that they do. I want to just very quickly start by saying somebody that I look back on my school experience, and I'm sure you can both relate, and say that they made a real difference for me was Bob Quigley. Just one of the nicest people, one of the best guys you would ever meet. You can't get a little choked up even now still talking about him. He was just one of the best people that Marshfield ever had to offer. And you guys are clearly continuing the great groundwork that he laid as a fantastic school resource officer. You kind of hit on it a little bit, Officer Crowley, when you talk about the work that you did with Robin Ryan Lambert. I had a long conversation with her about the work that you did to get 2 students who needed housing in a very, fast-paced manner. You helped get that done. You were integral in getting that done. That's not a normal job description for a school resource officer, but you did it. You went above and beyond. Officer Hernan, I see at the middle school how you connect with the teachers and how you connect with the students. And they all say it's like one of the best parts of their day when you walk into their classroom, and it just allows them to bring the material to the students in a whole new way. And you can just tell that connection that you have with the kids is palpable. Officer Cleary, I look back on our Washington, D.C. field trips together, and you know every single kid on those trips, and you know them well enough that you'll say to me, who do you have in your group? Oh, you got that? What a great kid. Or, oh, yeah, that kid's kind of had a rough couple of years, but just a great kid. I don't think you've ever said anything bad about a single student. Every kid's a great kid. It's really, Marshfield Police is such a model for every police department in the entire United States. And we all say that, but we really all mean it. And I think that example starts in the schools. And with everything crazy going on in the world, we're so proud to strengthen the partnership that we have with you folks even more. We're proud to stand by you, that you stand by us, and we look forward to strengthening that partnership even more as the years come. So thank you, folks. Thank you, Lieutenant Shaw. Thank you, Chief Tavares. We really appreciate everything you guys do.
It's hard to follow the two of you because you've pretty much summed up everything, but I just want to let you all know how much you're appreciated. And I think the phrase above and beyond definitely applies to all of you, and I think the entire police department in general. as a perspective from a parent, I don't think a lot of parents know all the things that you do. And even just in the examples you gave, I think a lot of people just see you as sort of like a safety presence in the schools, not realizing the connection that you're making with so many kids day after day. And we see it on social media. I know Chief Tavares gets texts from me and probably Mrs. Brait pretty frequently. I'm like, look at this that was on Facebook, and it's a parent sharing their gratitude for something that one of you did for one of their kids, or walking them to class, or making them feel better on a hard day. And that just makes such an impact on kids. I know my own kids that are in elementary school will tell me every day, Officer Crowley was at school today. That was today, you were at Martinson. I get the report from my daughter Evie. But it's just, it's exceptional, and I think it's rare. And knowing people on other school committees and other communities in the South Shore, this is not what happens everywhere, and we're so lucky. And I think Mrs. Brait would agree, sitting on the safety committee and hearing the conversations that you all have, and Chief Tavares and Lieutenant Shaw, and all of the care and the, I don't know what the word is I'm looking for, but your expertise in keeping our buildings as safe as possible. School safety is not something that's a one and done, and it's all, it's finished. It's always evolving, and to hear the thoughtful conversations and the things that you bring to the table, you know your students, you know your buildings, you know them in and out. As a parent, it just makes me feel so lucky and appreciative to know that our schools and our community and our kids are in safe hands with you guys. So thank you so much.
I'll just add my gratitude for our partnership as well. And it's really heartwarming to hear you talk about the kids, because I know that comes through to all of them as well, and I think the enthusiasm and the caring that you're showing here tonight for the kids is something that they absolutely will see and feel. Kids are going to learn better when they feel safe, but safe means not only safe in terms of physical safety, but I think also knowing that people care about them, and that the adults in their school, whether it's you or the teachers or the principals, when they know that there's caring adults in their lives, they're going to be more open to learning and able to handle any other challenges that they're facing in their personal lives at home. So thank you for all that you do.
I hate going last because Sean's already said every word, I think, in the dictionary right at this point. But so I just want to say, I'm grateful to live in a community where we have such a great relationship between the school district and the police department. And it's not just what the three of you do in the school. You're also involved in the community, and people see you out there. And that comes from great leadership, right? From, Chief Tavares and Lieutenant Shaw, sitting there, and, top down. We have, in my opinion, the finest police department that I've ever seen. And it's great to see the impression that you make on the younger members of our community. I just want to thank all of you.
Mr. Granatino, did you want to add something?
Sure, I will give it a shot. I don't know how long my voice is going to hold up here, but this is a big night. We had to postpone this for a few times, and we're talking about the budget. We're talking about our friends from ESS working with us, a number of things, but the impact that the school resource officers have had on our district is amazing. It's you can't quantify it. It was amazing when we just had Tim, and to be able to have Justin and Brian join us over the last year and a half. We are a better district because of the resource officers working with our students, working with our schools. I don't even look at them as officers in the sense that when I see them around the schools, Justin's playing basketball out in the playground, or Brian's in the cafeteria working with kids, and Tim's roaming the halls or at sporting events at the high school, and they're part of the faculty. They're part of the culture of the schools. They're part of the fabric of our learning environment. And they make our learning environment safer, obviously, by their presence. But they add so much more than just a badge and a gun. They are great people who work for a great department, and I could not have a better partnership with Chief Tavares and all the men and women that are part of the Marshfield Police. And I think that we help them, and I know that they help us greatly. So I just want to thank them for everything. And I feel really bad that I can't be there tonight with you. You would not want to be near me right now. So, but thank you for everything that you guys do for us.
Thank you.
Thank you guys so much. I was just wondering if we could get a quick picture with the committee. Joni, can you take a photo of us? You guys just want to come right over here and we can all get up together. Chief and I, do you guys want to come on over too? Yay! Let's give him a round of applause. Yeah. Have a great night. Thank you guys so much. Okay, moving on here. We're going to skip Superintendent Granatino's informational for the sake of his voice. Dr. Martin, did you want to add something in the informational? No, we're going to skip that. Okay, and you all have agenda items, so we're going to go right through that. Look at that. Okay, good. All right, now has come the time for public participation. Do we have any members of the public that would like to speak? Come on up, Mr. Kelly. How are you tonight? Thank you. Don't forget to state your name and your address, please. All right, awesome.
Eric Kelly, Jason Tapp. Is everyone okay? It's the latest variant of the actually causing China virus.
Point of order, Madam Chair, you can't say that. No, you can't. I'd ask you to refrain
okay.
from saying it.
Time out. Time out. Okay, we're not interacting. Please speak to me.
Really, January leadership was education back to Zoom. I'm sure we all know that was not going to happen. In my opinion, the reason Commissioner Riley, Governor Charlie taking on one Zoom option got in place because we're forward to plan a vaccination of our kids. Shot. More and more healthcare professionals are coming out against our children. Since August, the school committee has put a sign out where each of you stand as a mass mandate. You have no problem more than 9 minutes, accepting the gifts, budget items, as well as other non-controversial items. When it comes down to a vote on mass mandates to inform parents of where you stand on the issue, you choose not to defend our children's individual rights. You choose to hide behind your unelected individuals at best. You choose your place in history as you do known as the cowards. President Justin Cheney's cause for national by local elections, much like they did last year with allowing kids back to school. All that has been a political nightmare, and our children are the ones who have suffered. They will not die. Thank you.
Anybody else in the public would like to speak? No? Okay. Student representatives, come on up. Thank you for being here. How are you? Very good, thank you. Thank you so much. I'm going to take the agenda out of order a little bit here. We can do the minutes at the end. Just to let the committee know, the cafeteria workers agenda item, that is not going to be tonight. Let's start with our old business and our COVID-19 update. Is that going to be you, Tom? Or, I'm sorry, what? Nope.
That'll be me.
Okay, go.
I'll give it a shot. Hopefully I can make it through it. You guys hear me okay? Okay, so just a update where we're at. Nurse Landry, our district nurse leader, has been tabulating vaccination rates now for the elementary schools now that we've had a few months of kids under 12 able to get vaccinations in. Our elementary schools range from 28% at Daniel Webster who are fully vaccinated, students and staff combined. We have 49% at the Ames Way, we have 40% at Governor Winslow, we have 38% at Martinson, and 47.6% at South River School. In addition, at the high school and middle school where there's getting vaccinated throughout the year, the high school is at 78.9%. Again, the 80% threshold is still in effect, even with the extension of the mask mandate through February 28th. If the high school reaches 80%, or any school reaches 80%, then that district can take it upon themselves to look at waiving the mask mandate for those students that are vaccinated in that one school, not the whole district. So the high school is at 78.9. They would need about another 16 individuals to be vaccinated to get to 80%. And the middle school is up to 63.9 now. They're still a ways off, though. They would need another 162 people to be vaccinated. One thing that we've been tracking as well during COVID, especially since the holidays, is our attendance. We have seen a large number of students out since we returned, although the tide seems to be changing some, which is great. Just going back to last week, we had 555 students out last Monday. Again, we have about 3,800 students total, so it gives you a good perspective as to how that impacts the whole district. Tuesday we had 534. Wednesday we had 424. Thursday we had 426. And then it bumped up a little to 514 on Friday. That might have been impacted by the long weekend as well. And then today, we had our lowest number since early December with 312 students out. So that's a real positive. Case numbers across the state, as you know, have been spiking a bit since just around Christmas time. We were averaging probably 20 to 30 cases in November and December, if not a little less. Then starting 2 weeks before Christmas, we were at 35 cases. And then on the week of Christmas Eve, we had 40 cases. And then when we came back, we tallied the 2 weeks from Christmas to January 5th. And there were 325 cases during that period of time. So obviously kids were out of school at the time, so it wasn't impacting us from a contact tracing, but it was a large number. And then the week ending 1/12, which is last week, the week goes for the state accountability, goes from from Thursday to Wednesday. So it ended last Wednesday. We had 283 cases. That was our largest 1 week total. But right now we're trending at a much lower number for this week. We're at 139 students out. Tomorrow would be the last day of the week for tallying numbers. So even if we had 40 or 50, we'd still be under 200, which we haven't had since before Christmas. So keeping fingers crossed there. We have had about 75% of our cases overall for the whole year since Christmas. That's how, and we're not alone. That's every town, every city in the state has had that spike. It's not a Marshfield thing, but it is eye-opening nonetheless. We've had 1,025 cases so far this year, with 747 of them since Christmas Day. The district, the community is still running their vaccination clinic on Thursdays, Fridays, and Saturdays over at the fairgrounds. And we're starting PRC tests for those that need them, townspeople that need them. They started it today, and I believe they're doing it Tuesdays and Thursdays from 10 to 3 each of those days. I might be off on that second day. I know it's Tuesdays, and I think they're going to add a second day. So, those are the numbers. As far as new information from DESE, we got, although I was out, I sat in on a Zoom meeting this morning, and there's a new testing program. As you know, school districts can test students either through symptomatic testing, those kids that appear to be symptomatic, those that are in test and stay for quarantine purposes, or if we were to do pool testing. Those are the three types of testing that districts have done throughout the year. Probably about a quarter of the districts have done the pool testing. A much larger number has done test and stay, and the symptomatic testing is obviously pretty much across the board, everyone doing that. But they are starting a new program at the end of this month. We're making it available to districts, and it will take out of the equation the contact tracing that's been really weighing down districts across the state. They've been looking at the numbers. They've been looking at the numbers of test and stay students who are not testing positive, even though they were a close contact in the district. Those districts that are doing the pool testing have seen the number of the positivity rate far less than the state level, probably about 1/5 of the state level. So the state is moving away from those two as a means to gauge who may or may not be positive. And what they're offering for districts now is a chance to not have to do the close contact tracing if we don't do the test and stay, but as long as we stick with our symptomatic testing, which we've done since day one, we'll be able to then provide home kits for those people that can test, those that want to take part, that will be able to test their child or test the staff member on a weekly basis. In this way, they can gauge whether or not their child or their staff member may be COVID positive, but it won't have to fall on the nurses at the schools. It won't have to interrupt the time on learning. The whole contact tracing, that really is pretty disruptive to the school, although test and stay is a lot better than what it was before, that quarantine students would have to miss a lot of school. That hasn't been the case, but nonetheless, they're seeing the numbers not warranting those programs to move forward. I mean, districts still can do that if they want, but if they're doing test and stay or pool testing, they would not be able to take part in this program and get the free test kits that, again, would go home with the students, go home with the staff members. So if we go with this new program, and there's going to be a webinar, they gave us a very quick press conference or a Zoom conference this morning for about 5 minutes, and then they sent out a release, and then they had their press conference with the governor around 10. So there's more follow-up webinars tomorrow. I know I'll sit in on it from here, and our nurse leader will be watching it, and we'll have a better idea of what this is going to entail, how we hand them out. But schools that opt in early, you can opt in anytime from, I think they said January 21st through April 1st. But the earlier you join in, the more accessible you will have to the more access you'll have to the tests, and have them more readily available for us. So if we opt in by the 21st, then they would have the test kits out to us, I think, by the 28th, and then I think starting January 30th is when they would be looking for us to hand these kits out. And again, if there's someone testing positive, we don't have to do any close contact tracing. It would be a positive case. They would follow the same isolation protocols that are across the board already, the 5 days, no longer the 10. But there wouldn't be the close contact tracing and the other kids having to either sit out or take part in test and stay. So I had a brief conversation with our nurse leader. She was in favor of this program. I know she was going to share it with the friends at the Board of Health, because they need to be on board with this as well. And I'll have follow-up discussions with them in the next day or two as well. But this is a program that we're looking to move forward with based on the rationale provided by the state, and the fact that it's going to really free up a lot of our nurses from countless hours of work that they've been doing in the contact tracing and in the test and stay protocols. So that's where we're at right now.
Does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, I have a couple questions.
Just make sure he can hear you.
Jeff, can you hear me?
I can hear you, yeah. If I don't know it, I'll raise my hand.
All right, so when you give the numbers of total cases, you said 1,000 something.
Yep.
Is that all students?
That's students and staff.
Okay, so a little more than a fifth, closer to a quarter of our district population has had COVID between September and now, right?
Yep,
Okay,
roughly.
so we're running out of people to get it. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Does
And
anybody?
again, those numbers are large, but they're not, again, I want to assure folks, we're not the only community out there that's having these types of numbers. And obviously, the hospitalizations aren't where they were last year, and the heavy symptoms aren't where they were, but nonetheless, the numbers have been alarmingly high over the last few weeks. But again, I'm hoping, going by this week's trend, that we're starting to move in another direction.
Right. So I just had one more question. Sorry to make you keep talking.
That's okay.
So as far as the test kits, what is the reporting responsibility? Is it on the honor system?
That, I need to get more information. They literally had us on a Zoom call for about 5 minutes, if that. And so I need to read up a little bit more. It would really be the families or the staff members that test positive would let the school know, because we would have to put it in the database. But again, there's no close contact tracing or anything like that would be going on along with it. And that individual, whoever was positive, would have to be out the 5 days, or whether it's over a weekend or however it is, it's 5, and they resume their activities on day 6, which is the new protocols we've had in place for a few weeks now.
Right. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Do you guys have any questions? No? Okay. All right, thank you, Superintendent Granatino.
Thank you.
Let's move on next to our ESS update. Mrs. Scalaro, and I believe we have a few guests, one guest.
Just mute, keep it mute. Can you hear me, Jeff?
Yes, I can hear you fine.
You can.
Yeah.
Where's the internet? It's mute. Okay. That went smoothly. Perfect. Okay. Thank you. I'm just going to, so tonight we have on the agenda an update, a mid-year update from our partnership with Effective School Solutions. So we have with us here tonight a number of representatives from Effective School Solutions. We have the CEO, Duncan Young, so he's here tonight to meet the school committee and to provide us with an overview of a mid-year update about Marshfield's partnership with ESS to date. We also have Elizabeth Cotter from ESS, who is a licensed professional counselor. She is working within the district, primarily focused on collaborating with Marshfield staff and administrators to provide professional development, K-12, and individualized coaching to teachers at the elementary level. Elizabeth is also providing specific training for parents on various mental health topics, and these presentations are being promoted through CPAC. We also have Dawn Ryan, who's the regional director of ESS. She works with administrators, staff, and ESS clinicians at Furnace Brook and Marshfield High School. Also presenting tonight is Maura Hayes. So Maura is an accomplished Marshfield High School graduate, class of 2016. who is now giving back to Marshfield as a first grade teacher at Governor Winslow Elementary School. Mara is one of 15 elementary teachers from across the district on the ESS Champions Committee. She works directly with Elizabeth and other members of the Champions Committee and all the teachers and staff at GWS. And she is here tonight to share a few of the Tier 1 strategies she's implementing in her classroom to support the mental health and behavioral needs of her students. And then also here tonight to support this is Karen Hubbard, principal of Governor Winslow School, and Maureen Kemet, principal of Furnace Brook. So they are administrators that work with me in our collaboration with ESS. In addition, Erin Wiggin from Marshfield High School also participates kind of in that group, but she was unable to be here tonight. So with those introductions, I will turn it over to Duncan Young.
Get that out of the way for you.
Perfect. Thanks so much.
Put it up there.
Okay, good evening, everybody. My name is, good to go. Hi, I'm Duncan Young. I'm the CEO at Effective School Solutions. It's a real privilege and an honor to be with all of you tonight and to have the opportunity to serve Marshfield in partnership with you since the beginning of the school year. Really excited to share a progress update and a little bit of data about the work that we've been doing together this year. We like to start off all of these presentations just talking about a little bit of data and statistics about the mental health crisis facing our young people. It's really hard to read a website, open a magazine, open a newspaper right now without seeing some alarming new study about the mental health challenges that existed pre-COVID, but also the ways in which COVID and a lot of the collective difficult experiences that we've had as a society have affected the social emotional wellness of our young people. So the first key point here to really emphasize is that mental health outcomes in our society have really been degrading, particularly around young people, for about a decade at this point. 1 in 5 students struggle with a mental health disorder. Most alarming to me, the population of students that suffer from the most intensive mental health disorders has increased by about 76% since 2011. Second, the COVID-19 pandemic has increased sources of trauma, and a lot of the research on trauma and negative social emotional impacts in students' lives can lead to negative mental health outcomes. So studies show that quarantine significantly increased rates of anxiety and depression among children. For 11 to 21-year-olds, rates of suicidal ideation increased by more than 50%, and emergency department visits related to mental health increased 24% for 5 to 11-year-olds during the pandemic, and 31% for 12 to 17-year-olds between January and October of 2020. What we've really started to see in the past few months is a lot of the things that were anticipated and were kind of hypothesized back in the year of quarantine about what back to school was going to look like. We've now started to see what the reality of a lot of that looks like on the ground. And what we've seen across all of the 90 or so districts that we work within is a lot of challenges that students are having in reintegrating back into the social structures of school. Challenges, especially with our secondary and adolescent students, reacclimating their sleep schedules. And they could have been used to staying up to 4 a.m. and kind of watching a recorded version of a class. We've now got to get them back in the routine of waking up at 6, 7 a.m. to get to school on time. Increases in anxiety, stress, depression, and trauma. Again, that return to full day in-person learning has really brought a cascade of mental health crises, and in some schools, surges in aggressive behaviors. There's been a lot of emerging research on that in recent months. The American Association of Pediatrics recently declared a national emergency in child and adolescent mental health, and back in early December, the U.S. Surgeon General issued a youth mental health advisory. And this quote at the bottom is directly from that. There's a problem now, and there was actually a great crisis with youth mental health that we were facing before the pandemic. I believe that this is a critical issue that we have to do something about now. We can't wait until the pandemic is over. Hey, all of our work with you in the district is aligned around this multi-tiered systems of support framework. I'm assuming all of you have some level of familiarity with MTSS. a fancy term for multiple levels of intervention that correspond to multiple levels of student need. So down at the foundational level, we really believe it's important to have a strong set of processes, protocols, procedures that really guide your mental health efforts within the district. Tier 1, that's our universal support level. So those are the things we're doing directly with all students, or things that we're doing for all students via the work that we do with all teachers with professional learning in order to support their mental health and wellness, to identify signs and symptoms of mental health challenges. Tier 2, those are levels of care for students with more mild to moderate or more episodic, temporary mental health challenges. So students who might need support for 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 10 weeks, but who generally we can step down after that to a lower level of care. And then a tier 3 level of support, those are levels of support for students who require a higher level of care, more moderate to severe mental health challenges. Often those are students who might be in an out-of-district placement that you're looking to bring back into the district, or a student who might be at risk of outplacement because we're struggling to get them the support that they need with the existing tiers of support that are in place. And this dashed line around the outside indicates that we are partnering with you across all 4 levels, and we'll go through the different work streams that correspond to these different levels of care. So one of the phrases and terms that we found ourselves using a lot with Marshfield and that we've really adopted as the tagline, the motto for our work together, is this idea of every interaction matters. So this simple idea that when it comes to student mental health, every interaction between a student and another student, between an adult and a student, really matters, and collectively, all of those positive interactions can work together to create a really healthy and strong social emotional support fabric for all of our students, regardless of grade range. So what does this really mean on the ground? This means that every teacher and parent is getting additional training to recognize and respond to mental health warning signs and direct students to the proper forums for care. Second, it means that as a district, we've got the right processes in place to organize our efforts to deliver high-quality mental health care on a sustainable, ongoing basis. And then third, it means that we've got the right clinical programming for students at all level of need. So it means we've got a uniform vocabulary. If you ask anybody in any school, what does a tier 3 model of care look like? They can tell you, they can let you know what that looks like. What does a tier 2 model of care look like? We've got a clear, unified language that we're speaking around that. And then our 3 work streams really correspond to these 3 different areas of need. So work stream number 1 is the set of mental health professional learning activities that we are partnering with you to do across the district with both educators and with parents. Second, we are working with a committee of about 17 individuals in the district to create a mental health playbook, or an MTSS, multi-tiered systems of support playbook. So what does that set of defined protocols and procedures look like that's really going to guide our mental health efforts on an ongoing basis? And then third, in terms of having the right clinical programming in place, we are partnering at Marshfield High School and at Furnace Brook to offer additional levels of care at the tier 3 level at MHS and at the tier 2 level at Furnace Brook. And we're servicing close to 30 students as part of that work right now, and getting very, very positive outcomes and positive results, which I'll share with you tonight. Let's first start off by talking about our mental health professional learning, and I will invite our Director of Professional Learning, Elizabeth Cotter, to join me and take on this part of the presentation.
Thank you. So, I think I have the best part of this job, I'm going to tell you right now, because I get to work with all of the staff and all the families. Not all the families, but we'll get them in, right? What we're really doing is we're looking at building capacity. We realize that children live in systems, right? We're not raising children in test tubes. We're not raising these individuals in these little bubbles. So we need to work with all of the systems that surround our children. And that's our schools, that's our teachers, that's all the staff in the schools, and that's families. So I've been really excited to work with our teachers, and we've had some really great outcomes in our workshops that we presented for parents. So we want to give a little bit of an overview on what we've been focused on this year. Our work with teachers has really been wrapped around this idea of a trauma-attuned model. And when we say the word trauma, we are not saying that all of our students have experienced trauma. We are seeing statistics that indicate that the possibility is there, right? The possibility is there. This has been a really tough couple of years. And we know some children are more resilient than others. We don't know why, right? We've been trying to find this out for years. What makes some children more resilient than others? And the number one thing that we've seen is these are children who have supportive adults around them. These are people who are wrapped tight in communities that take care of them. So our work with teachers has really been wrapped around how do teachers understand the signs of trauma, right? How do they understand how it may impact students? Because it's a wide variety, it's a spectrum of behaviors. While many are very outward, right, and we see these behavioral issues, we also have many that are very withdrawn, and we don't want to miss them, right? We want to teach our staff how to respond effectively to de-escalate a crisis and how to recognize the signs of a crisis before it happens. And a lot of that involves, right, monitoring our own emotions. We're not saying we're supposed to be calm and regulated all the time, right? We're humans. In fact, oftentimes when we model for students that we can be disappointed, we can be frustrated, right? We can be worried, but we can keep moving forward, right? That's when the real teaching begins. So we've helped our teachers to really recognize they were already doing this, but like why? Why is this working? Why is this working so well, right? And we've talked a lot about creating these trauma-attuned classrooms. So our next slide is actually going to talk a little bit more about what that looks like. Our work with parents so far this year has focused on destigmatizing mental health. And we had some really good conversations with some of the parents who attended, right, about how we can identify warning signs, right, but also what are the ways we stigmatize it? What are the ways that we kind of stop talking about it, right? How do we help our children and how do we help ourselves talk about the warning signs? And how do we respond? Of course, how do we respond to these behaviors? Caregiver, right? Caregivers in this time. And we all need to take care of ourselves. And I know that term self-care has been way overused. So we talked about what does that really mean? It's not bubble baths, it's not massages, right? We talked about ways that we can really and productively take care of ourselves. And again, that really models self-care for our children in this time. So in total, we've had 10 workshops, over 80 hours of learning for teachers and parents. That also includes our coaching hours that have been in the school. I've been working with a group of 15 champions, and we call it our Champions Committee, in the elementary school level. Started off with a 6-hour, very intensive trauma-attuned model training. And then I've been working one-on-one with observations, meeting with teachers, and collaborating to really understand, is what you're doing works? Like, why is this working? Right? What can we do more of? Right? What can we do to really create a safe environment for all learners? For all learners. And these are the areas that we've really worked on. We've worked on environment, materials and assignments, relationships, and de-escalation skills. Members have really worked hard and understand and create a safer environment. And these were people who were doing a wonderful job. I have to tell you, relationships, like I was seeing, these are teachers who care about, and relationships for caring people. How do we communicate it? How do we communicate it in the best and most consistent way? Environment, right? A trauma-attuned learning environment that's nurturing, that's safe, that's inviting. We literally talked about things like lighting, right? And thinking about the temperature, especially now that we have a lot of windows open and things like that. Materials and assignments that take into account all the individual differences between. Recognizing the signs of distress in a student. Recognizing the signs that a classroom is beginning to raise that energy level, right? And how to modify what's happening in the room before it becomes a crisis. So we really talked about de-escalation protocols, skill building, and affect. Again, this really talks a lot about teachers' self-care. So I do want to ask Maura Hayes, who's here, we talked about, one of your wonderful teachers, to come up. These are pictures of Maura's classroom. Maura has been an amazing member of the Champions Committee and has had, just ran with everything, every suggestion. She was already fabulous. I can't take credit for all of it, but I think Maura has a lot more interesting things to say than I do, so I'm going to hand the mic to Maura.
Thank you. So these are pictures from my classroom that I've worked with Elizabeth on different techniques and how we can incorporate this trauma attitude model into the classroom. I think it's super important first to note that this is not what is expected for every classroom to look like. This is what worked for me, this is what worked for my classroom and my students. This is gonna look different in a 3rd grade classroom, a 4th grade, a 5th grade classroom. It's gonna look different for the teacher, what they're comfortable with and how it best fits their students. So I am a 1st grade teacher, and what we've been working on is identifying emotions and talking about feelings and emotions, because when you're in 1st grade, you're 6, 7 years old, you don't know how you're feeling. I don't know how I'm feeling all the time, and it's hard to identify that. It's hard to say, I'm angry, I'm frustrated, I'm upset. So that's sort of the basis of where we started. So you see, it's kind of hard to see, but there's those different characters from a movie called Inside Out. So one's blue and yellow and green, and those sort of are key visuals for the students to help them identify, oh yeah, I am kind of feeling angry, I can see that, or I'm feeling sad, I'm feeling tired. So we start with that, and we introduce those first. I also use books from Diane Alber. They're called the Spot series. So each book focuses on a different feeling and emotion that we really dive into. We spend time once a week, we read it together, we talk about it, we do a little page with it. It just helps them put one more thing in their little bucket, one more emotion that they can identify. We start with that, and as the year goes on, we've built on this. I've worked with Elizabeth, we've talked about the size of our problem. So in one of the pictures, we wrapped a box together. There's a really big box and there's a small box. And so we talk about during the day when someone's having a hard time. Is it a big problem? Does it take a lot of help to fix? Is it a little problem? Can we fix it ourselves? Can it be easy? So a lot of this, it's a lot of visuals, but that's what's helpful for the students. It helps them identify that. It helps us be able to talk about it easy, because talking about this with a 1st grader, let alone a 5th grader, is not always the most comfortable thing. It's not always the easiest thing. So I definitely think that having Elizabeth has been helpful. We've worked together with all of the teachers on this, and then I have found those Spot book resources, which are awesome for the kids because they love to look at them, they love to read them, and it really helps narrow our focus throughout the week and throughout the year.
And I want to stress especially, I think Maura really took a chance, because these are very little kids. These are very little guys, right? And she created this wonderful cozy corner. So when they're feeling frustrated, when they're feeling that they can't focus on their work, they can go here and they can take a break and they can return. Now, the only way this works is when the instructor is focused on the return. Do you know, like the real welcoming them back? Like that's the big part, right? It's not a break if you go and you play all day, right? That's not a break. So how do you get them to use it appropriately? And that's a teacher's patience. Do you know, like that's really like playing the long game instead of the short game, and not being afraid of losing control. Because actually the class has been managing it very well.
Yeah, I definitely say that that's probably one of the things that teachers sort of see and they shy away from at first, because it definitely takes away from part of your day. So when you are so structured and you are so, like these veteran teachers, you know what they're doing, they come in, they do it, they've done it before. This is something new, you have to take the time to do it. The more time that you focus on it now, the students understand it at such a young age, they're able to regulate themselves, they're able to come back and really own how they're feeling, and then in the future you spend less time on it anyway. So these are really skills that you're building right now, and for some people it might seem silly or over the top or unnecessary to really focus and take the time on these things, but it's so important because this is the foundation for them to continue through elementary school, to continue through the middle school and the high school. So we're fostering that foundation for them to continue to grow throughout their years in school.
And the other great piece is, as we talked about, there's 15 champions. So there's 3 in each elementary school. So when an entire school sees one teacher's classroom doing this and working so well, that's where we've changed the culture. right? So we've invested in 15 teachers, but we've actually invested in the culture of all of the schools. You know, and I'm sure the principals here, I know Karen is so proud of Maura. She's like beaming. But it does, because that makes other teachers say, hey, wait a minute. You know, something is changing in here, right? And how can I kind of get a piece of that, right? So, you know, I think it takes a lot of courage for those teachers, especially in a year like this year, where things are changing so much and we have to be so flexible to also really devote the time to really understanding, because when we have regulated kids, we have kids that are ready to learn, right? And kids are coming in with a lot of adult problems, right, that they've been with the night before. And we have to take the time. It's unfortunately, we have to change with this world. And I think Maura has done such a great job of really just exemplifying, you know, the work that ESS has really done with teachers. I'm like, can you come on the road with us? No, we won't steal her from you. Oh my gosh, Maura, thank you so much. Oh, I just wanted to share just a couple of quotes also. These were just some feedback that we got from some of our professional development. You know, I had to put my name in there, like, what can I do? But I really like the realistic approach. And we're not telling people to be rock stars. We're not telling everybody to be regular. We're telling people to own their feelings. We're telling people to know when we're getting frustrated, angry, and label it and identify it and show children that it's okay. You can still get your work done, even though you don't feel great, right? Teacher said we are one lifeline that can facilitate additional steps for a child. An interesting PD activity. I'm sorry, great to have everyone hear the message of this importance and significance of mental health for our students. I learned resilient children can become that way through utilizing their supports. Build relationships. And I learned that compassion and empathy are a powerful tool. So I am going to pass the mic back to Duncan. Thank you for giving us that time.
Thanks, Elizabeth, and thanks, Maura, for sharing your experiences. Great work to you. Amazing stuff. Okay, second work stream, and we'll go quickly through this. Mental health playbook development. I mentioned before that we have 17 educators throughout Marshfield that are working with us on this. So I really want to recognize, I think we've got a couple of members here, members of our playbook steering committee who are partnered with us on this. And a big part of our philosophy around consultation is that we do this hand in glove with the district, because ultimately this is going to be a set of tools, a set of artifacts that you're going to own moving forward. And we want to make sure that we're building that capacity and we're building that sustainability from the get-go with all of our work together. So thank you to everybody who's on the steering committee. I know they're putting a lot of time and effort into this work with us. All of our playbook initiatives begin with a needs assessment. So we actually did a needs assessment back in the October timeframe that went through and really asked educators to identify the aspects of the mental health support system that they felt like needed work. What was not really a priority, what was somewhat of a priority, and what was the most urgent priority. And then we actually track the data. This is a little bit hard to read, but these are little thumbnails with graphs showing how each of the areas that we evaluated actually rated. And we actually had 4 or 5 key findings that came out of this. So observation number 1 was that there's an opportunity to really synchronize general education and special education supports. In many situations, mental health care has really been the domain of the special education world, but we know that there are many students who are not classified as special education who also are dealing with mental health challenges. And we want to make sure that from an equity and an access standpoint that we've got our general education processes and our special education processes really working hand in glove. Second, and I mentioned this one before, there's an opportunity to further define modalities of care. So again, do we have a common language, a common definition, and a common expectation about what Tier 3 care looks like from school building to school building, what Tier 2 care looks like from school building to school building, and what our collection of Tier 1 universal supports are from school building to school building. A lot of the work that we're going to be doing as we go into the implementation phase is helping to develop artifacts, our playbook, to really define exactly what those modalities of care look like at every level of the MTSS framework. Observation number 3, one of the things that came up and was actually rated among the highest by educators was a potential need for universal screening. So a broader set of tools to help identify students, some of the more internalizers that Elizabeth mentioned before, who might not have big behaviors, who might be struggling with challenges, but who might not be on anyone's radar screen. So there's a lot of interesting and emerging best practices taking place in school districts around the country, and we're gonna talk and work with the MTSS committee to educate them on some of those and determine if there's a path forward that the district might want to take in this area. And then fourth, a need for consistent documentation of mental health processes. While there's ample documentation, and I would say Marshfield is very much kind of on the leading edge of what we see in a lot of districts across the country in terms of the work that's already been put in place, there is that additional need for further consistency, further definition of best practices, and codifying those best practices so that they are consistent from school building to school building. Our next steps, January and February, we're going to complete our audit in working with the partnership, the partnership team of current organizational structure, staff roles, and evidence-based practices. In March, we will be working to create a district-wide flowchart to determine how mental health services are implemented between both general education and special education, making sure that we've got that synchronized approach in every building. And in April and May, we'll be completing the MTSS mental health playbook and going through at every program, at every tier, and every school, and really documenting some of those key fundamental questions. What are the modalities of care? What does it look like? What are the entrance and exit criteria? What we want to avoid through the creation of a playbook is what we would call random acts of therapy, which is a term we would use to refer to well-intentioned but disconnected initiatives that might not be doing harm for students, but they'd be doing a lot more good if they were operating with a higher level of fidelity and consistency. So that's going to be a big area of focus. Third and final area that I'd love to touch on tonight is the additional clinical support at the Tier 3 and the Tier 2 level. So again, right now within the district, this is kind of a repeat of our MTSS framework. We are implementing a Tier 3 wraparound clinical support program at Marshfield High School that services up to 10 students with those more moderate to intense challenges. And then we are implementing a supplemental Tier 2 clinical program at Furnace Brook that serves up to 15 students concurrently. And I say concurrently because the design of a Tier 2 program, we refer to it as a brief clinical model. It generally is treating students in a 6, 8, 10-week increment of time, which means you can serve multiple cohorts of students over the course of the year. So it might be 15 simultaneously, but you have the ability to impact up to 45, 50, 60 students over the course of the year. Okay, so the first thing we always look at with any new partnership is how are we doing with respect to census. Census is our fancy clinical term for how many students are actually enrolled in therapeutic programming. And what you can see here starting on September 1st is we have seen steady and dramatic increases in the census of both the Tier 3 programming indicated in the red and Tier 2 programming indicated in the yellow. So again, our maximum census here would be 10 at the Tier 3 level, 15 at the Tier 2 level, 25 in total. And you can see we're right at about maximum census. That's exactly what we want to see. Most districts typically want to leave, 1, 2, 3 spots in reserve just for a student who might present with a need for services, and we see that we've got a little bit of that wiggle room up in there. Notably, at the Tier 3 level, there are 3 students out of the 10 who have returned from an out-of-district placement and are now able to benefit from everything that Marshfield has to offer. So great news story on that. Okay, district-wide therapeutic progress. Our clinicians are tracking, they're creating treatment plans. They are creating weekly progress notes showing progress against those treatment plans. So there's a lot of qualitative information being generated. What we like to do, though, is we like to also gather a couple of quantitative data points to really show what the numerical representation of that therapeutic progress looks like. And so what we do is every week when our clinician meets with a student, they're asking a student to evaluate, self-evaluate their wellness, their kind of mental health status. How are they feeling on that particular day on a 1 to 5 scale? And we put those ratings into 3 different categories: positive wellness, which is the bottom section, neutral or stable wellness, or poor wellness. And so what you see here is from October to December, we have seen a significant improvement and a significant decrease in the percentage of students who were reporting kind of a negative mental health status, 48% back in October, and that number has gone down to 14% in our last administration in December. So 88% of students showing stable or positive wellness. We then ask our clinicians to actually do their own summary assessment of how students are progressing against their treatment plan goals. And here we actually see really great results in both October and December. So 85% of students in the December administration who are exhibiting strong progress towards their treatment plan goals. That 6% has gone up a little bit to 16%. Anything less than 20% is outstanding. There are also more students in the December administration than the October administration. So you're seeing a little bit of a sample size difference between those two bars. Okay, and then the final thing that we really want to look at, especially with Tier 3 programming, because we're supporting students for a longer period in time, we want to look at how the therapeutic support is impacting their academic performance, grades, discipline, attendance. And so of the 10 students, there are 5 students for whom we had access to baseline data, which we define as their marking period 4 data from last year, and then their marking period 1 data from this year. And we look again at GPA, at discipline, and attendance. So of those, of the sample size of 5 students for GPA, 3 students out of those 5 showed an increase in GPA or 60%. And 2 showed no change in GPA, so great results there. With respect to discipline, 100% of students showed either no change in discipline or an improvement in discipline. And with attendance, 80% of students showed either improving attendance or neutral attendance. There was 1 student of the 5 which had an increase in the number of absences in marking period 1 versus marking period 4. So again, this is early data. Again, the small sample size here is many of the students actually joined us after marking period 1. So we actually, their baseline would be marking period 1, and we need another couple of weeks to get kind of the second data point with them. But in terms of early data that we're looking at, in terms of successful results, this is really fantastic to see. And the final piece of data that I'd like to share is really our parent survey results. So these are surveys that we administered to parents of students in treatment. This program is helping me cope with my child. Counseling staff understands my family situation. I have sufficient opportunities to speak with staff. The program is helping my child. This is all out of a 4-point scale, so you can see all of the ratings here range from a 3.8 to a 4.0. So family connections and building the support for that family unit that Elizabeth mentioned is a real key principle behind all of our work. And this really is great data to look at because it shows us that we're getting great buy-in from parents into the therapeutic progress and the process and the therapeutic support that their students are receiving. And then finally, I'm not going to go through all of these, but a couple of great quotes from parents whose children are participating in the program. So glad Marshfield implemented this program for children who need the support to thrive in public high school. Michelle, one of our clinicians, has made my child's transition back to full-time school much easier on her. This has been beneficial. Dan, who's our clinician at the high school, is amazing, and we appreciate him very much. Dan is kind, thoughtful, and beyond supportive to me and my son in his current situation. Dan is helping us more than he knows. We valued his experience and knowledge. Thank you. So all great things, great feedback for us. Okay, with that, I'm going to stop talking. I'm Duncan Young. Really a pleasure to meet with all of you. Thank you for all of your time, and happy to take any, I'll turn it back over to Amy.
So
Yes.
I just have a couple things to say, and then just stay right there in case there are questions. So before questions, I just want to one more time thank Duncan, Elizabeth, Dawn, Mara, Karen, and Maureen for coming here tonight. I also wanted to just reiterate the positive impact Marshfield's partnership with ESS is having on students. You know, Marshfield has talented and amazing staff and mental health professionals at all of our schools. And this program is enhancing what we have. It also represents a pathway to cost savings in that the more we're able to use our resources to expand the supports that we can provide to students and families within Marshfield, the more Marshfield students and families benefit. So, you know, through this, we have been able to return students from out-of-district placements back to Marshfield, which is amazing and which is always, you know, our goal. And we've also increased our capacity to the point where we can provide more intensive services within the district, so we avoid that need to look for out-of-district placements at all. So I just want to, it's still early, we're learning, we're in process with everything, but I'm glad that we were able to come here tonight to at least give you a midway update, and then if you have any questions or comments, I will turn it over to you.
I have a whole bunch of questions. I don't know if... Of course.
That's okay.
All right, time's up.
Well, first of all, are we going to be able to get a copy of the presentation?
Sure.
That I talked about it being thorough, that was awesome. And it's incredibly important, and I just want to say thank you to you folks and back really quickly.
Is she still a neighbor? Is it friend and neighbor, or you still live near us? Oh, excellent.
Yeah.
So neighbor.
Friend and neighbor, yes. Thank you, Ms. Hayes, for taking the time to be here and for everything you do for that, and of course to our two fantastic principals as well.
Want to go ahead?
Me?
Sure.
Oh, okay, excellent. Let's see. So you referenced 2011 in your presentation and increases based on that as a starting point. What was significant about 2011?
So it's a great question. Again, this is another area where there is a tremendous amount of research. I don't think any clearly defined kind of cause and effect types of things. I'll tell you some of the things that have been speculated. So back in 2011, you saw a rapid increase in the rise of technology among young people. That was, the iPhone was probably 3 years old at that point. Facebook was probably 2 years old at that point. Instagram was just kind of becoming a thing. So a lot of the research points to the negative and sometimes the socially isolating effects of technology. Technology obviously has a lot of positive benefits for our young people, but I can speak as the parent of teenagers myself. It can also be kind of a challenging if it's overused in particular. This particular study that data point came from also referred to the disruption in sleep patterns with young people that again was tied to technology. So beginning about 10 years ago, young people began sleeping a lot less, and that obviously can have a dysregulating effect on their moods and on their emotions. Elizabeth, anything you want to add to that?
I would say that's pretty much what research, again, it's speculation, right? It's a lot of speculation, but I think that social media, and again, look, we're just learning again, like especially the effects on self-esteem too, right? Like it's really all just starting to come out, and it's kind of scary that we're seeing there was research earlier telling us that, companies were seeing the effects of social media and phones on the kids. But I think that's really around when we started to really see like that jump statistically.
Okay. Yeah, I have a whole bunch of questions, and I'm sorry. I apologize to everybody here. I don't like to talk. Yeah, so prior to 2011, did a lot of these same issues exist? And if so, did people just deal with them? As opposed to having the need to have intervention?
But that's what I think is a great question, because as I look at those statistics, you also have to say, right, as our awareness is increasing, right, are we going to also see statistics increasing? Because these are all self-report and family report. And a family that's ashamed and worried and scared, and again, talking about the stigma and isn't reporting it, isn't going to make a statistic.
Okay. Let's see. So, yeah, causes for increased anxiety. You kind of alluded to that, right? Social media, so on and so forth. What I'm wondering specifically to this state, during COVID, the wearing of masks and isolation and lack of facial expressions, does that play into a lot of this?
I don't think we have any conclusive evidence of that. We're going to see all of this in 10 years. We're going to know what the heck just happened. Do you know, a lot of this stuff is based on kind of microcosms. A lot of the research has been based on children who have had these kind of community events, whether it be shootings or hurricanes or, and so a lot of what the initial research that indicated how are we going to address all of this was based on these small communities.
Right.
So as far as a universal episode, we don't know any of this yet.
Okay, I didn't know if your company does business in other states where they don't have the same rules implemented, and if you notice a difference, although the demographic is different, but I didn't know if the lack of a trend in some of those other places.
Just from, just from my personal experience, all of my states that I've personally been working in all have mask mandates. I'm not sure if that's universal.
That's true with ESS as a whole. So,
okay.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So, trauma attuned. That's the whole basis of this, right? So, what is the threshold for a trauma? What is considered traumatic?
It's absolutely the individual. The same thing, we can all be in the same room, right? And one person can walk away completely unscathed, where somebody else could have a trauma response. It's really difficult to predict what can be traumatic for one child or adult versus another. That's what makes addressing it so completely difficult, right? Because we can't say, oh, this happened, so now this child is going to have a trauma response. We can't predict it. It's kind of, those are the signs that we're kind of saying to parents. You want to watch these signs, and the signs are so far out from acting out to completely withdrawn to, things like perfectionism, right? Like we love a straight A student, that's not all signs of trauma, but the way each child expresses it is different. I think the most important part is noticing a change in your child. Noticing a change, and I think that's the biggest indicator. It's different here.
This is going to sound odd, but could it be as simple as just saying no, and the child has never heard no before? I deal with this at work with a certain age group, and they've never heard no in their lives, and they act out as a result of it. That's why I'm asking. I didn't know if that.
Trauma. The definition of trauma is perceived danger. Right, it's how the child perceives an action.
Yeah.
So it's hard for me to answer a hypothetical, but
I didn't know if it was hypothetical or real. Right, you're in that business. I'm not.
One of the most well-developed areas of behavioral health research from the last probably 10 or 20 years or so is the area of adverse childhood experiences, or what's called ACEs. So that's very relevant to this conversation. So an ACE would be an example of that. Would be violence in the home when one was a child, a parent who lost a job, a parent who had a substance abuse challenge. And what that research really shows is that students are typically, they can be assigned an ACE score. The higher the score, the more adverse childhood experiences they had as a young person. And there is really significant data there that correlates high ACE scores to negative outcomes later in life. Greater chance of drug use, greater chance of incarceration, so on and so forth.
Okay.
So, yeah.
All right. Now, as far as the delta percentage between, just say, 1st and 12th grade, are the younger ones more prone to this than the older ones, or is it pretty much across the board?
I would say mental health challenges typically are going to onset. I'll tell you the trend, but then I'll tell you the trend on the trend. So most mental health challenges could manifest themselves most severely in the secondary ages, but what another piece of data that has really emerged in recent years has been the rapid escalation in the percentage of younger students who are actually dealing with mental health challenges. So that's the fastest growing cohort of students that are out there.
I think typically we used to really associate it with puberty, the onset of puberty and a lot of the hormonal and chemical changes, but absolutely we're seeing younger and younger kids presenting in the emergency room, and that's across the country.
Okay.
So it's more that it's happening more often. I would say that and again, is some of our awareness as well.
Very great. I only have 2 more questions, so that should make everybody happy. So, in your presentation, you talked about Tier 2 at FBMS and Tier 3 at MHS. 3-tier system, right? 1, 2, 3. So do 1 and 3 exist at the elementary level, and does 1 and 3 exist at the middle school level, and 1 and 2 exist at the high school level?
So tier 1 is we're defining it here. Tier 1 can be a couple of different things. It could be kind of a social emotional learning curriculum, for different age groups. The way we're defining it here is the universal professional development support we're providing to Marshfield teachers so that they can go and support educators. And that has been, correct me if I'm wrong here, work that we have done across all grade ranges here.
Okay, great. Final question. So MHS, you notice the improvement over the course of the year, right, between the beginning and end of the year. Did you trend that between first and second semester, second and third and fourth, right? The reason being is the full return to school. Did that play any part of that?
So the data that I shared is actually looking at marking period 4 of last year and comparing it to marking period 1 of this year. So when we begin work with the district, we typically define what we call a baseline data point, and that's the data from the marking period prior to when a student began ESS services. So for students who entered in marking period 1, that was marking period 4. We've not had a chance to look at marking period 1 versus marking period 2. I don't think marking period 2 is over quite yet, but that is certainly something we can do as we move further into the school year.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you for the
great
question.
presentation.
Thank you very much, and thanks
you
for
guys
the great
do
questions.
a phenomenal job.
Thanks.
Kendra or Bridget?
I don't have a question, more so just a comment, and I'm only assuming that this is a result of the work that's been going on in the district, but I have a 5th grader who came home a couple of months ago. We're in the car, and I asked her how her day was, and she was like, it was really good. Did you know everybody has a backpack? And I was like your backpack you bring to school? And she's like, no, an invisible backpack. And I'm like, no, like, tell me about this. And she's like, well, my teacher sat us down, we had this great conversation today, and we all shared, like, things that we carry around in our invisible backpack that nobody knows. And she went on to tell me that she shared some personal things with her classmates, and her classmates all shared things. And I was just sitting there. I used to be a teacher, and I'm like, I cannot believe that there's these 10 and 11-year-olds having this conversation in class, that she now has this next level understanding of empathy towards her classmates, that everybody is carrying around something that's, troubling to them. So I'm assuming that's a result of this. So thank you for that.
Great. Thanks, Kendra, for that feedback. Appreciate that.
Boyd? No? No, okay. I have a couple questions. First of all, thank you for your presentation. Thank you for your time. So my first question is, when is the next update?
As soon as you would like it. So generally what we recommend is with our district partners, it's typically once a year to twice a year to every marking period. So I would really defer to you and to Amy. We're happy to come back whenever you would like to have us.
Okay, so it's my understanding that this is a 3-year contract. Is that right? So we renew every year? Okay. Okay. I don't know about anybody else, but I would like to see another update from the beginning to the end of the year, since this is our first full year. I'd like to see that. I'm interested in feedback from the staff that currently works in the district and how they feel about this program, since they've been here for a while and this is something brand new. I'd be curious to see what they think. If they've been working with these kids, they know these students, and just how it's kind of intermingling throughout the district. I'd be interested in that. You talked about signs that every student and every parent can recognize, and you also talked about the 10 workshops that have been done since you started. I was wondering if these workshops are they pre-planned? So did you come in here with your list of workshops and then you just say, okay, we're gonna do this workshop this month and this one next month? Or is that something that you are developing as you go along?
We have a library, but we've been working closely with Amy to also specialize it. Because Amy knows what she wants. So we always work hard with Amy, so we have done some specialized ones as well.
I think we've learned over the years that teachers' time is valuable, and teachers value information that gives them, actionable feedback that they can take back to the classroom. And so that means anything that is cookie cutter, we generally try to stay away from and really work to customize it to the specific needs that you're looking for. But we have that library of about 25 workshops that we use as a starting point.
Okay. And I would assume that those differ on the different levels, from elementary to middle school and then high school.
Right.
Okay. And some of the workshops that you do for the parents, are those cookie cutters?
Again, we have the library, but we also customize them. We did destigmatizing and we did caring for the caregiver. So we did pick some of our kind of more general ones to start with.
Yep.
But Amy and I have actually been working on what we're going to do next.
Okay. Just some feedback on that. I feel that they're presented to the community in not enough time. I think that as a committee member and somebody involved in the community, I would like to know sooner when your plans are for that so I can help increase attendance. I think that the other members of the committee would like an opportunity to advertise that as well, because we can only help people if they're in front of us. So any opportunity that we can take to try to increase attendance will only help everybody else. So if that's something we could work on, I'd appreciate that.
Great feedback. Thank you for that.
I will say out loud too, I'm disappointed that we don't have a representative from the high school here tonight. I think that this is really important. And just hearing Maura, thank you for being here and thank you for all, your hard work. You've probably all heard me talk about sharing best practices, and when we have something that's working really well, I would love to see, her share that with other people. She's only one person in one school and in one classroom, and I would love to see what you're doing across the whole district. I mean, in a perfect world, I would love to say and maybe this is coming in the playbook, I don't know, but when students are in first grade in Marshfield, this is what they get access to. This is what they're going to learn, whether it's coping skills or, how to be a good friend or whatever it is that you're doing. I would love to be able to say, in first grade, this is what they learn. In third grade, this is what they learn. In fifth grade, this is what they learn. So it's even across the board. So we know that all of our students are getting access to this. I know I'm talking a lot, I'm sorry. So I did take a screenshot of the implementation phase. It's on there, of that playbook. So once that starts, how often do you plan on adding to that? I know that this is kind of your area of expertise, but how often do you see changes and trends, and what are your recommendations for revisiting that playbook? I know, just like a textbook, you use it and then you throw it away, and what are your recommendations for that, and how long is that typically, I don't want to say good for, but you know what I mean?
I think a good rule of thumb is an annual process, having an annual review process and having that be driven by the data, driven by the research and what you're seeing out there kind of in mental health trends taking place across the country, and trends in school-based mental health. Because I do think if you look nationwide right now, school-based mental health, schools were not designed as institutions of mental health care delivery, designed as institutions of education. So I think that we are still in the relatively early stages of schools and districts really kind of seizing that full potential role for how they can really positively impact student mental health. But an annual process, I think you can't go wrong with.
Okay. And just one more thing. Other districts that you work with, what's the longest you've been in a partnership?
So we started in 2009 with 2 district partners, Cherry Hill, New Jersey, and Boonton, New Jersey. They're still with us today. So those 2 districts, 12 years, 13 years.
Okay, and what's the shortest time?
Shortest time, we've got some districts who have been with us for a year, but
okay.
Generally that's relatively rare.
Okay. All right, and I'm just curious what the reason is that they're only with you for a year. Is it financial, or is it?
Sometimes financial.
Yep.
Sometimes it's the scope of work. I would say clinical services tend to be more long-lasting than, say, professional development services. Sometimes with professional development work, that might lend itself to just more of a year of work, whereas clinical services, you typically are becoming kind of part of that mental health delivery network for the district. And I think that's especially true at the tier 3 level. A lot of districts do implement tier 1 levels of care, tier 2 levels of care, tier 3 levels of care, which is a true clinical level of care akin to what a student might get in an intensive outpatient program or even a partial hospitalization program. Those are generally levels of care that traditionally have not been offered by school districts. One of the big trends I think that we're seeing right now is districts beginning to offer those levels of care for a number of reasons. Number one, the right thing to do for students. Number two, those again are students who are more likely to go out of district. So to have the opportunity to keep those students in district, to benefit from all of the extracurriculars, all of the athletics, everything that the district can offer, that's a big aspect of that as well.
Okay, great. Thank you guys so much.
Very welcome. Thank you for your time.
Mr. Granatino, did you want to say anything?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, thank our presenters. I want to thank Ms. Galaro. I think it's really important to note that, excuse me, with everything going on around the district in dealing with COVID and dealing with just bringing our students back, into full-time education. Her focus has been from day one, making sure that the kids have the supports they need, the work that she's done with MTSS, and working with our leadership team to spread that word has been huge. But the care for those that need mental assistance, the mental well-being, excuse me, has been at the forefront of everything that she's been doing, and she's doing a lot of different things. But this has really been her focus in setting up systems here with our folks, along with our friends from ASS. We are much better off, and our students and staff are much better off because of her efforts. I just want to thank her publicly for all that she's been doing here. And I apologize for the coughing.
Thank you, Amy. Okay, moving on here to our FY23 operating budget. This is a first read for the committee. Mr. Miller.
Yes, I want to share my screen here.
All right.
And I want to thank Tom as well, because I thought I was going to be able to try to get through the presentation, but as you can tell, it's not so easy. So I think if I had to speak at length on the budget, it would probably be too garbled. So, Tom, if you can walk them through the PowerPoint, that'd be great.
Okay. All right, we're actually going to take a recess for a minute here. Do we have to vote on that? No. All right, we're taking a little break. 2 minutes.
Sounds good. I'm not gonna die yet. I got 50%. So. Are we live now? Oh wow. When do we start going live? We weren't able to go live here for ever.
It's been like that for a little bit.
Oh, really?
I think from like beginning of COVID it started.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, when we first came back here, that was the plan.
Right.
And the selectmen were here for like 2 meetings, and they couldn't get it to work. They pulled it.
Taking a recess. Is everything okay?
Jack.
Okay. The great powerful us. Yeah.
All right, is everybody all set? Okay. Mr. Miller, are you all set?
All right. As Mr. Grantino said, I'm subbing in for him. He can save his voice for this presentation. So this is the first initial read of the fiscal year 23 operating budget. This is what's referred to as the superintendent's budget, the initial budget. Get started with this. There's our slogan: every student, every day, whatever it takes. And the annual budget. So the annual budget is what we represent as a school district. And through the process, we go through the entire educational program of the whole district, and we look at the problems and difficulties and what our needs and wants and desires are for the district. Again, here's the budget policy, the guidelines, procedures. Superintendent proposes a budget. The budget's based on the school committee goals. What's in our strategic plan, and put forth by administration, and then with the detail and backup for the committee. I do have the binders. I know Ms. Stetson is very happy that she has her binders. I think this may be the last year. I think we're going to go digital next year. So that's I think it's time. I
love the binder.
I know the binder.
I like paper. I don't want a digital binder.
Well, I will do whatever the committee desires. We can talk later on that one.
Okay.
Of course, as I said, the strategic plan is the basis of our district budget. I'm not going to go into the pillars there, but this is actually the 5th year of the plan, so we'll be looking at that soon enough. Our administrative team, we met in the summer at our annual retreat to look at some of the district goals and where we were headed. And then just recently, we met as a leadership council, along with Mr. Costello and Ms. Stetson, and to talk about that financial plan, which I'll detail in a moment. But there is our full administrative team. Budget subcommittee, as I said, Mr. Costello, Ms. Stetson Campbell, along with the 4 of us, will be meeting as a budget subcommittee to move forward with the work that still needs to be done. I will discuss that momentarily. Here's our last 11, 12 years of budget, of our operating budget, and the increases are denoted there. As you can see, we've had a recent good period of increases. 2.9, 2.56, and 3.09 over the last 3 years. This recent year, we'll get to this recent year proposal too with the town in a moment. Last year, 3.09 increase. With that, for this fiscal year, we've continued to meet our collective bargaining agreements. We've done a lot with the COVID-19 challenges, not only with the operating budget, but with the CARES Act funding and other funding we've received to address the COVID challenges. We've increased our nursing coverage dramatically across the district. We've added innovation specialists at the elementary level, and we've added 2 math coaches at Furnace Brook in the elementary level. So we were able to add those this year. And In addition to that, we've also, at fall special town meeting, we received $250,000 for school maintenance. That's under the direction of Fred Russell, our facilities manager, and the district, along with $400,000 in free cash to offset some of our COVID costs. That's $400,000 on top of the current operating budget, but it's a one-time revenue, so we don't take that money moving forward. Level service versus needs-based. Level service budget allows us to continue the services that we are currently providing. So that includes that includes the contractual and inflationary costs. The needs-based are not only that, but also what we look to see to have our programs and our district continue to grow. So here's just a really, 5,000 feet recap of our budget. So fiscal 22 budget, $52,577,000. That's our budget this school year. Right now, this FY23 projected salary increases, it's about $1.7 million. Again, that's very rough, very projected. We presently only have a couple contracts under contract for fiscal 23. I know we've begun negotiating with our ESPs, which is our second largest unit, and when that is settled, that will be for this current school year, along with 23, 24, potentially 25, however it works out. But we still do have to negotiate a new teacher's contract for 23, 24, and 25. So when I put a number there, it's very, it's not necessarily pulling a number out of the hat, but there is a little method behind that. But that represents about a 3% overall increase, which is going to be our increase from the projected town school budget as well. So that number, along with our operational increases, is actually right now, operationally, we're looking at a decrease in costs. There's detail on those numbers, and it's primarily a loss in our vocational tuition. Right now, vocational tuition, we're projecting to be about $125,000 less next year. And we're going to talk a lot more about vocational education, South Shore VOTEC, the South Shore Regional School District, and everything that goes along with that coming up in the next few months as well. So the only operational increases that we're carrying right now is our transportation contract increase of 3%, $40,000. So that's all that $85,000 number represents at this time. So taking those two figures in, the level service budget would be $54.2 million, just a little over 3%. And but the additional item is our financial plan, our needs-based enhancements, which we'll detail momentarily. That brings us to a needs-based budget of $54,830,000, which represents about a 4.29% increase. And right now, our projected town school budget increase is 3%. So the overall town revenue is going up 3%. In meeting with our town administrator, Mr. Moresco, some time ago, and he just did his budget presentation, and right now it looks like a 3% increase, which is something we can definitely we can handle moving forward. That looks to be where we would be at. So if you look at the 54,830, the 54,154, there's obviously a delta there of around $700,000, and we'll work through that the next few months as we move towards April town meeting. Here's the financial plan for fiscal year 23. The full draft plan is in the binder, and it's also on the Google Drive. But here are the items that administration ended up putting forward We'll discuss this more with the committee, with the budget subcommittee and the committee as we move forward. They're not in any particular order at the present time. Our tech integration specialists at the high school and middle school. Right now we have 5 tech integration specialists at the elementary level. There is 1 currently at the middle school. Amy McAlpine, who has presented to the committee, originally started in that role at the high school, but she's now district-wide. So we'd be looking to get somebody hands-on 100% at the high school as well. So that's a 100% position at the high school and a second integration specialist at the middle school. Ms. Kemet's here, and she currently has 1. She's looking at 1 more to help at the middle school. A math coach at the elementary level. Is that elementary? That should be middle school. Yeah, I thought so. And it's, yes, math coach at the middle school. As we stated before, this year we've added a math coach for K through 8 and a math coach K to 5. We're looking to expand math, and Dr. Martin can certainly speak to this later if there are any questions, but this would be a math coach for the middle school. We're doing a lot of work with math, and it's paying dividends across the district. Another item is a music teacher at the secondary level. This would be primarily based at the middle school, but it would also help the high school as well. At the present time, we have two music teachers splitting their time between the middle school and the high school, and this would, it not only would help music education, but it would also do a lot for our middle school scheduling. There's, Ms. Kemet's been dealing with the middle school schedule and trying to bring more electives, less study halls for the students at the middle school. It's one of the big things that, as a middle school parent, that I've heard, and it's all based around our music education. So adding another music teacher at the middle school and allowing those music teachers to go back to the high school, and it would open up the scheduling process at the middle school and benefit our students tremendously. World language teacher at the middle school. Presently, grade 7 is our first year for world language at the middle school. This would allow world language to start in 6th grade. Long term, it would, as a few surrounding districts have done, have started world language at the elementary level and moved up. So this would be one of those electives that would be possible for our students starting in 6th grade. Unified athletics has been on the plan for a couple of years. This is just, it's a small dollar value. It's just getting the program up and going. The past couple of years with everything that's been going on, it hasn't been on the forefront, but it's something we're definitely looking to do as we move into next school year. A number of the surrounding districts have started programs, so that would be a tremendous benefit for those students. I always have general and instructional supplies on here. It's always the last thing to be added back, but as I mentioned to the leadership, we all know the inflation's hitting, the cost of everything has gone up, and it is starting to finally make an impact at our school level. We've had the same dollar value for instructional supplies across the board outside of a few accounts for the last 8 or 9 years. Actually, maybe almost 10 years at this point. So we're definitely looking to increase those supply accounts. And this is a new one. Another new one is the social worker adjustment counselors at the elementary level. This was a big talking point from our elementary principals. This is two FTE. The plan would be to bring 5 FTE over time at the elementary level. We just had the presentation from ESS. This is all tied together. This is all based upon the students' mental health at the elementary level. And a lot of work to be done there. We do have school psychologists at all 5 schools, but they're getting pulled in different directions, and this would be, the Adjustment Council of Social Work would be focused directly on our students' mental health. Technology expenses, this long-term, we need to bring our technology spending into the operating budget. We've been very fortunate to not only have the high school building project bring forth a lot of capital in technology, but we've also hit the capital budget a couple of times since then, and we've also been able to get to a one-to-one primarily across the entire district through some of the CARES funding as well. So a lot of technology spent through those grants as well. But in order to sustain that, we need to beef up our numbers in our operating budget for technology. And then Assistant Athletic Director, Mr. Battis brought forth this. There's a need for greater supervision at athletic events. Right now, it's himself and a administrative assistant who is also our trainer. She puts in, during the school year, she's putting in mega hours, and the potential to change her, not necessarily her, but the potential would be there to change that administrative role to an assistant athletic director. The cost there is not exactly the salary, but there's a differential there, and potentially bringing in an additional trainer or contracting out training services. So all told, all those items make up $628,931. Obviously, that's all a projection. But that is what we are carrying forward, as we saw in the previous slide, the 628,931. So that's what brings us to that 4.29% increase. What's still outstanding? The questions, obviously COVID is impacting everything. The COVID-19, that includes our CARES funding, which is still the $2.8 million in ESSER 3. We've spent approximately $700,000 thus far, but a lot of it is encumbered as well. The whole plan is still in effect, but it is also a 3-year plan. So it not only is being spent in 2022, but it can be spent in 23 and 24. So that's going to help us sustain some of the items that we have added through that. On the long-term 5-year plan, not discussed in the presentation, we have a couple of items that we're already looking at keeping in the district once the CARES Act funding goes away. A permanent substitute nurse is a perfect example. We were funding that through the CARES funding, but after 23, we would look to bring that as a permanent substitute in fiscal 24. The other items here are typical items. The governor's budget, it looks like everything is going to fall in line with that at the time being. Circuit breaker, again, there's no indication that there's going to be any sort of lesser funding than we typically receive in a couple of those items. I already mentioned contract negotiations. That's a big number. That's a big thing right there. 86% of our budget is salaries. So it's all geared. This is all geared around working with those salary numbers and getting those contracts settled. State and federal grants. Again, outside of the CARES Act, we have our large SPED grant and a number of other grants, Title I, and all that plays into how we move forward because all those grants, to a certain extent, offset some of the items in our general operating budget as well. Local revenue forecasts, I mentioned earlier. Mr. Maresco made his presentation. Everything looks solid for the town. There's a time period where we didn't have any finance team primarily at the town level, but everything's starting to come together. The accountant's been on board for over a month, and a new treasurer collector is starting on February 1st. So, but all the numbers prior to that seem solid, and again, a 3% increase for education is on the docket as far as the town budget goes. Changes in sped student services costs, always kind of a moving target. It falls in line with circuit breaker or out of district tuition. That's a big budget driver as well. And of course, enrollment. Enrollment we've been very fortunate over the last few years to keep our elementary class sizes down. The plan is still to keep that, keep our numbers down at our elementary level, but there's still a few grades at the elementary level that there definitely could be, if we needed to pull to some additional funding, potentially to add some of these items from the financial plan. There could be some work with class sizes at the elementary level, along with the middle school and the high school, as those smaller class sizes, class grade levels move up into the middle school and into the high school. So all that, there's still a lot of questions to be answered on that front. And our next steps, we still will continue to meet and discuss all our items. Our next meeting, we'll have the budget hearing and the vote on the preliminary budget as proposed. As I've stated before, collective bargaining agreements continue to be negotiated. We'll still be talking with Mr. Maresco and his team. The budget subcommittee will meet and look at where we are in the process as we move towards April. And again, our budget and district goals continue to be discussed at our school committee meetings over the next 4 months, and meeting with the advisory board and the BOS to continually discuss our requests. And then it all comes back to we should have a final number on April 5th. That's our final school committee meeting before annual town meeting. Annual town meeting, April 25th. And that is it. So that's the full presentation there. Like I said, we'll have the budget hearing, our next committee meeting, and we will look to propose that $54,830,441, a 4.29% increase as our initial needs-based operational budget.
Thank you very much. Mr. Greer, do you have a question?
I have it's more of a comment. So when I got on the school committee, 80% was the magic percentage in terms of salaries, right? And we're pushing 85 right now, right? The other thing, this proposed budget is almost a 30% increase from when I came on the school committee. It hasn't been that many years. So at this burn rate, I'm really concerned down the road, right? We're talking about 4.29% increase, and I understand it's a preliminary budget. However, private sector, you're only getting 0 to 2% of an increase per year, and we're outspending percentage-wise what the private sector is getting, right? So it's, folks in town are going to be taking home less and less money out of their paycheck, and that's my concern. So if we could take a good look at it, I mean, all of this stuff is needed.
Yeah.
I'm just concerned with my initial projection was 17 years from 8 years ago we would double our budget, and here we are 30% into that, right?
Yeah.
So I just don't want to be doubling it sooner than 17 years from 8 years ago.
No, I understand the point. I mean, I think if you take a look at this, I mean, those aren't huge increases. I think the point is your point right now, where if we're going up 3%, and the private sector may not be hitting that right now, but there were years there where private sector was definitely out pushing us. Proposition 2.5 really did. It
was 1978.
What's that?
Wasn't that like 1978?
93.
Prop 2.5. I remember standing outside with all the teachers. They were all picketing because of 2.5.
1993.
I was going to Grace Ryder at the time.
Oh.
So it was 4th or 5th grade. For me, so I think it was 78.
Maybe. I thought it was 93. Education Reform Act of 93. But I'll take a look.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, this is what it is. And the 3% now, I mean, we're going to be, the latest cost of living estimates are up, 4 or 5%.
I get it. It cost me an extra $430 a month just to commute to work.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So, and then the 7% inflation, all of that stuff. Yeah. What I'm getting at is I don't want to increase the budget just because we can. Right. We want the have-to-haves. That's just my opinion.
Yep.
My 2 cents.
Understandable.
Yep, that's it.
Mr. Costello?
Kind of going on that note in terms of what we have to have, and I don't mean to put her on the spot, but I know she stated on that financial plan, just as long as Principal Kemet is here, maybe if she wants to really quickly tell us why some of those items are important have-to-haves from a middle school perspective, if you don't mind.
Oh, there you go. 1980, you're right.
You were close.
I shouldn't have doubted you, Rick.
You're close.
Mine too. I actually lingered in case for any questions. Tom did a great job explaining about music. So it is a little scheduling, but it's really ensuring the students have full schedules and not a lot of study halls, or we call them flex times. That's not considered time on learning, and we really want to engage our students. And there's so much research on why music and the arts are beneficial to students, especially in the middle school. So that will provide us that extra time for them to do that with full capacity, and music is so important. World language, as Tom explained, Mr. Miller, as a district, we've talked about that, and we all know learning language is, well, I should know, after 8 years of Spanish, I probably know about 20 words, because I don't use it, but if the students started earlier, they will gain better skills at learning a second language. So we talked about, as a district, kind of waving that in, so having an introductory course in grade 6 to really get some of the foundation to build those skills. And that's just more of an opportunity for those students coming into the middle school to have exposure to all these great things that they can really capitalize on and learn in the high school. I mean, I could talk about each of these because they're so important. And what I love about Marshfield is that as a district leadership team, we all talk about it. And there were times I remember saying, I remember we talked about the instructional technology position. I said, I am perfect. I would be great with 2. 3's overkill for me, I think, because I do have a lot of teachers that really use it well, but Amy McAlpine and Bree Gaffney do great work with our teachers and bring them to the next level. I also think the assistant athletic director, if anyone goes to those sports, they're really important too. So I don't know if anyone else, any questions for me?
Just to kind of piggyback off of that, and obviously I don't have any questions because Ms. Stetson and I are on the subcommittee, and I thought the conversation that we had as a subcommittee was very engaging, and I thought it was very enlightening. I think Mr. Miller did a great job presenting this tonight. But I just want to make sure folks know, I agree with Mr. Greer. We need to be looking, I know it. It's a good thing you're sitting, exactly. I was just going to say that. But I do agree is that we need to be keeping an eye on this stuff. I know Mr. Miller agrees. I know we all agree. And if we're going to be passing something new in our budget, it needs to be something that's worthwhile, which is why I asked Principal Kemet if she could say that really quickly since she was so engaged and still here. I would just encourage the rest of the committee who weren't privy to be on that meeting, as Ms. Stetson and I were, to reach out to some other folks in the district if you have questions on why these are important items, because there's tough decisions to be made if all of these don't fit in, but I think it's important for us to hear why they're important. So
Yeah, and I didn't even, as I'm looking up, I'm adjusting. I'm freezing, which is why I have my winter coat on. Sorry, I was freezing. So the social work, that is, personally right now, I see that as one of the biggest needs, and with the great work ESS is doing with us, and that's building capacity. But I have 2 full-time adjustment counselors for the first time this year. They are doing amazing work, and I don't think they ever stop. As well as my guidance counselor, I have 3 guidance counselors. I have a school adjustment school psych as well. And I'll tell you, there's 4 administrators that are doing constant work with kids with trauma. And we've had some great training through ESS and just from our skill set, but it's busy. And so when we're talking as a leadership team with the 5 elementary school principals, and they each have a school psychologist. Just one. I look at Martinson, 600 kids, Tom, how many kids are there? Am I adding a few hundred? Sorry.
400.
Okay, I'm adding more than 100. But that's a big school. Right now, I always say we can't teach kids unless their needs are being met. And that's emotional needs, physical needs, food. So that's so key. And I do think we do amazing work and things will improve. But we need to meet their kids, their needs now. So that's a good one too.
I thought that was the most enlightening part of the entire meeting.
I have a quick
hearing
comment
about that. So
Okay.
Thank you.
So my quick one goes to language. It triggered a thought when you said that. My grandson is 2. He speaks Czech and English.
Wow, cool.
At 2 years old. Depends who he's speaking to. He speaks to his other grandparents. He speaks in Czech. He speaks to me in English. Well, very slow. Yeah, so that I can understand it.
I gotcha.
Yeah. And he keeps the words small so that I can follow it, so, which is good, yeah. But I'd actually like to expand that. If you look at some of the programs like Milton and some of those other schools, where it's almost, like a neo-saturation type environment, right? With the French and some of the other languages. I would eventually like to get there.
I think we all will.
I'm playing the lottery on the way home.
Well, the bringing world language into 6th grade would be one of those specials that the kids could explore all the different languages too, and that really lays the foundation and to get into grade 7. But obviously, if we could, as we spread it down, it's beautiful. I have a good friend of mine who's a teacher in Milton for a long time, and she talks a lot about the French immersion program.
Yeah. So my cousins went through. Actually, one of my cousins is over in France right now doing a year abroad. But she started off in the saturation program in Milton.
Great.
Yeah, it really helped. When you say all languages, what was that, French and Spanish?
We're just doing French and Spanish at the middle school right now. Spanish is still by far the largest.
So no Latin and the off chance that the Pope comes to visit?
Not in the middle school. Not in the middle school, no.
All right.
All right. Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. No, we do not. Nope. Yep, first read, yes.
Yes.
Yep. Okay, moving on, we need to accept a donation. Everyone have a chance to read that letter in the drive? Yeah, it was a very nice donation. Sorry, what? Yep, yep. So just wanted to let everybody know that a Marshfield family donated $100,000 to the Amesway School, which is amazing. We're very, very grateful for that. Oh, really? Oh, that's so nice. Really, that's really, really nice. Yeah, that's great.
Madam Chair, while we're on the topic, I think it's wonderful. What a nice donation, and it is mentioned in the letter the creation, obviously, of a special reading nook in that library, perhaps named so for her. I would think that is more than appropriate. I also want to just put on the committee's radar, and I believe we may have discussed it briefly in the past, that recently, after an illness, Rebecca Chiaris passed away, and she was the longtime librarian at Amesway and a beloved member of that community. I know Mr. Campia and his entire staff are kind of feeling the pain of that loss, and as long as we're discussing this now, just want to throw that on folks' radar as well. There may be an appropriate time to honor her contributions as well at that library.
Thank you very much. So what do we need to accept this donation?
Oh, sorry to jump in. I have
That's
a
okay.
question for Sean.
Sure.
I don't believe there was a subcommittee. I believe we just wrote a couple proposals, because you're right, we have named things after folks. We've named four things after folks, and one of them was at the behest of Governor Winslow School. We named I believe the cafeteria or some space after Fred Hubbard. It might have been the gym, yes.
It is,
And
yeah,
then
the
we
gym,
did,
yep.
Yep, we did the Quigley Resource Officer Room, we did the Eileen Ryan Library, and we did the Barbara Anderson Auditorium at the middle school. So just, again, putting it on your radar, Madam Chair.
Okay,
for something to
sure,
discuss.
thank
And
you.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the $100,000 donation to Amesway School.
All in favor? 500. Mrs. Pizarski, thank you very much. Okay. We're not doing cafeteria workers, surplus equipment. Mr. Miller?
Yes, this, go ahead.
Yeah, sure.
Who's going to be the custodian of this?
I do not have the answer to that.
What was the
I'm
question?
assuming Mr. Miller, but I don't know.
Tom, are you going to be the custodian for these funds? And make sure, somebody needs to be the custodian of the funds, right?
Of the donation?
Yeah, they're not just going to keep them on the.
No, I think, I mean, I briefly talked with Mr. Campia, Principal Campia, and I think they're going to form a little bit of a committee to discuss what because obviously the school wants to make an impact with that funding. And rather than a bunch of tiny little items, I think they want to have some sort of committee that can come up with a bigger scale item for the use of those funds.
Okay. Yeah, so there is some
And
oversight on it. I just want to make sure there was oversight, because.
And I'm sure, once that gets rolling, if anybody in the committee would like to be a part of that as well, that definitely would be a proposal.
Right, it is also really clear in the letter what they want the money used for.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
so, yeah, but it all does funnel through you.
Yes.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Okay, so Mr. Miller.
Oh, yes, so this is surplus equipment. This is approximately, I didn't write the number down. I'm not going to pull it up. But it's a large number of Chromebooks that were through the original purchase with the building project at Marshfield High School. So these Chromebooks are approximately 8 years old, purchased in 2014. What the committee vote is to vote them as obsolete. Our tech director, Dave Cawthorn, has worked an agreement out with AG Parts Education, where they will pick up these Chromebooks and then give us up to $15 per unit as a credit. They're a provider of they repair a lot of our screens and any other items that repairs that are done. Dave just gave me a few little factoids. We presently have 4,800 Chromebooks in addition to these obsolete items, and they've replaced 175 screens this school year so far. The screens cost about $90 to $100 per screen. So these obsolete Chromebooks that have had a very useful life over the last 8 years will go to giving us a credit on those screen repairs. So a new Chromebook costs about $250 to $280 on our contract. So this is, I think it's 1,600 Chromebooks. Is that 1,639? Thank you. I didn't have that spreadsheet up. So yeah, 639 Chromebooks reaching their obsolete life. So the vote would be to declare those.
All in favor? Aye. 500. Thank you. And I think we have some minutes to approve from December 7th. We're not doing that tonight. Yep. Okay. All in favor? Aye. Our next meeting is January 25th, which is next week, back here at Seth Ventris.
Thank him for his efforts in participating, like his our team, despite being sick. We hope you get better soon, Mr. Grant.
I appreciate it. I apologize not being able to be there and for cutting in and out, but when I had to turn the screen off, you probably didn't want to see me, so. I'll be there at the next meeting.
Roll call.
Mr. Costello? Ms. Campbell? Ms. Boyd? Mr. Greer? Mrs. Brate?
Yes. Thank you very much. Good night, everyone. See you next week. And the week after that. And the week after that.
Thanks, gang. Thanks, Tom.